Like to get more into the mix and the mastering of the Say It Ain't So recording, and we're gonna get started by sort of laying the groundwork and sort of setting the stage so we can get a better idea of what's going on here. And we're gonna do that by having a look at the arrangement of the song. So let's just zoom out here into the full sequencer grid. So here is a view of the full song from start to finish. And I'll just take a few moments here to just sort of explain sort of where everything is visually on the screen so we are all sort of on the same point or on the same page here, okay? So I'm just sort of assuming that you've already listened to this song, and if you haven't, then for sure go and check out the song and the other video, and then maybe come on back here to this point here so that you can follow along with us and sort of know where we're at here, because I'm not really going to play the whole song in this video, just bits and pieces here and there. So here we go. So let's see here. Let's start with the tracks here down the left side. So at the very top, I have the original recording that I made, which, by the way I do that is I listen to the song from just like for this one. I think I already owned the album, and I like played it off of my computer, and then I recorded it onto a little handheld external recorder I have from Tascam called a DR07, and I record a stereo wave file of that, and then I import that into the software, and then I beat match it, like I sync it to the grid so that it lines up with the internal click and the metronome and everything. And that's important because then I can just like say like chop up the file or the arrangement, and I can rearrange it if I want to. Like I can extend the choruses and things like that, and it's really easy. And when you take the time at the start to do that sort of work, then you don't have to do it later on, and it's nice because when you do the work at the start to line up the original recording to the grid, all the drum sequencer like syncs to the beat of the song and everything, and it allows you to just work really fast later on. And it is a lot of work, and it's a pain in the butt syncing it, but it's really worth it in the long run. And just while we're on that note and setting the tempo and syncing, I found that the tempo for this song lined up to 75.850. And I just want to take a second to talk about that, because I think that that's something cool I don't hear people talking about, are tempos. And what I mean are imprecise tempos that are like in between numbers. Like this one's not exactly 75 or 76, it's 75.850. And a few of you out there might be wondering, well, why isn't it an exact number? Because they very likely, well, I can tell you right now with like 99.9% certainty that they recorded this song in the studio to a metronome, because once I found the exact tempo of the song, it didn't deviate at all whatsoever, or only in the most minuscule sort of way. And that's how I know that they for sure used a click track in the studio. But I can tell that the song was definitely, without a doubt, not recorded with a computer, because I've done the same thing with other songs that I know, for example, were recorded with a computer, like Closer by the Chainsmokers, and its song lined up exactly to the grid. And that's because it was created with a computer with an exact time base, and then I put it into another computer with an exact time base, and therefore they synced up exactly. But when a song was recorded with something that was not a computer, like an analog open reel-to-reel tape recorder, like probably one of the Otari machines that they would have used to, or not Otari, sorry, one of the Studer machines that I think that they used one of the 24-channel Studer 2-inch tape decks to do the original recording. And so anyways, okay, I'm kind of rambling here. Why is the tempo imprecise? Well, it's because a tape machine like plays back and records at slightly deviating times because it's mechanical. It's not a computer. It has motors and moving parts inside of it. And although those really high quality tape decks from Studer are very, very, very precise, like the most precise ones that have ever been made, pretty much. They're still not perfect, but that's sort of part of the magic of them, of course. And what that means is that when you make a recording, if you were to play it back a few months later, just because of variances in electricity and voltages and all kinds of analog things out there, the tape machine might play it back at a slightly different, very minor speed difference than what it was recorded at. And the thing here is that means that if it was recorded, say, at with a tempo of like 76 BPM exactly, well, just over time and the stretching of the analog tape and the deviations in the playback speeds of the motors on the tape machines and stuff, maybe they would play back and it would play back at a slightly different tempo. And I think that that's really cool because what we're actually hearing is different from what the musicians actually intended when they laid it down. And that's part of the character that the tape machine imparts on the sound of the feel of the song, are these slightly different tempos from what they originated as. And I find it's really fascinating to sort of analyze these tempos and look at where they where they ended up. Like this one, for example, is like 0.150 away from 76 BPM. So it's, I would see that as the tape machine played it back a little bit slower than what it was originally recorded at. But I have no idea what the original BPM for the song was, like Rivers is not exactly like a friend of mine I can call up or something, but that's sort of my analysis of the tempo of this song. And it's really fun, I've done it with a bunch of other songs like Bad by Michael Jackson and stuff as well too. And it's really cool once you start like analyzing songs with acoustic drums versus like a drum machine or something. Like Michael Jackson's Bad's really interesting because they recorded it with a drum machine, but it was recorded on an open reel-to-reel recorder, versus this song that was recorded with a human drummer but a metronome on an open reel-to-reel recorder. Compared to, say, like a human drummer recorded with a computer with a metronome or without a metronome. It's just really interesting when you get down to the super foundational basics of the time measurement that is at the very like seminal, like gooey center of your recording. And when you like just take a second to pause and stop and smell the roses there, and don't just like grab the tempo like that, you're like, oh yeah, I like to write at 104, which is one of the things that I always typically go for. But like these days, what I'm trying to do is strive towards like not just going for what I always go for a tempo, or not just going to the exact numbers. I'm trying to actually replicate some of those neat tape processes that were made. And these days, I'm actually picking tempos that are totally imprecise, like 92.914 or something like that. And sometimes I'll even pick a tempo and it has absolutely nothing to do with the actual time feel of the song. Sometimes I pick tempos simply because the number looks cool or it has some other significance, like it's 42 or something like that, and I love the number 42, something like that. But because I think that specialness and magic in a song can come from a lot of places and not necessarily where you expect it to come from either. Okay, so let's keep going down the track list here because I kind of went off on a big tangent there before I even got into the second track. Okay, so the second track are the drums here. That's the Redrum drum software that you can see up here in the Reason rack. And I'm not going to dig too much into like the Reason rack and all that sort of stuff here just now because I'll really go off on a big tangent there. But check out what that is for sure. It's really cool. There's the bass track right there. There's the left guitar track and the right guitar track and the chorus, and these are like the heavy distorted guitars that you hear. And then these are two more tracks that are the exact same thing, but the reason why they're on separate tracks, let's just zoom in back here. Okay, so this is the first chorus right here. This is the second chorus, and then the third chorus is back here somewhere. And the reason why is right here is because there's overlap in these signals. And the reason there's overlap is because when this guitar part kicks in, which is, let's see, it's right here. So that's where the bridge comes in, okay? And because I have like some slides that come in here at the start, and I have a little bit of like a trail of feedback sort of slide that happens on this track. And if I put a hard cut right there and there, you see like it would chop the front of this off and the end of that, and they would sound unnatural and unhuman. And I did not want that, you know? So I put them on separate tracks so that they layer on top of each other. And that way I got sort of like a more human feel out of that section. But if it weren't for that, then I would have just kept them all on the same track. And, you know, sometimes I'll also separate them too if I want to make the, say, the rhythm guitar tracks in the chorus a little bit of a different volume in different sections of the song. Like sometimes I'll make the last chorus like 1 dB louder. Like just the guitars, I'll bring them up 1 dB for the last chorus. And an easy way to mix that is to just take the guitar tracks for the last chorus and put them on their own isolated tracks, and then just send everything out through a bus, and then just put all your effects and EQing and dynamics and stuff on the bus. And that way you get the benefit of, you can slightly alter the volumes of each of the individual channels throughout like a wider arrangement perspective, and then plus still have all like consistent processing on all the tracks as well too. Yeah. I'll just take a moment to say here, yeah, this is a pretty in-depth video, and I love going really into the nitty-gritty depths of all this stuff. But if you don't want me to go too deep into this and just stay more sort of objective and to the point, then just let me know, you know. But I really like going into the details here, so if you like that, then please do let me know. I'm always sort of wondering, like, am I giving too much detail here, or should I just kind of keep rolling things a little bit quicker, you know? Anyhow, let's speaking of that, let's keep rolling here. Okay, moving down the list, I have these chorus leads, and what these are the parts that go like wow, 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 in the second chorus and the last chorus. So I'll just play it here, and you just watch along so you'll hear it's the wow, wow. It's those ones. And I like those to be isolated on their own tracks, because you see, if you take parts and you sort of like when how am I gonna say this, like when the band plays the song live, Rivers plays the rhythm and the lead part at the same time. You know, they don't split up the two guitar parts amongst the two guitarists in the band when they play it live, as far as I know. But I like to do it in the recording, and I think that they did it in the recording as well too. Because it, you know, when you're doing a recording, you really, you know, it's important to be honest and true and real above all else, of course, but you also want to put your best foot forward as well. And so sometimes you can take a part and sort of like a written part on the guitar and break it down into separate ways of playing it, you know, and you get sort of a cleaner, more full recorded sound about it. And I that's why I like to do this, and sort of separate and break out parts, and you know, and sometimes I'll do that like a bunch of different ways, you know, and it's really fun to sort of think about how you can arrange and expand parts by breaking them out into different tracks, and like, because you can apply different tones and different instruments and all that sort of stuff. It's sort of like what the old composers used to do back in the day, like Bach and you know, and all those old fogies, you know. Like they would take a song or composition, and then they would apply different instruments to all of the different sort of chords and harmonies and melodies, and that gives it sort of a more full sound. And that's sort of, I guess, sort of maybe the approach I'm taking to that with the guitar, and I think it really works well on this song. You know, it's really cool. So let's keep trucking here. Okay, next up we've got the clean guitar left, and this is the these are the little chords that are up on the high strings on the guitar. It's this part. I'll just solo that for a second. Yeah, I'm not sure if the gain on the amp was set at like 5 or 10. I feel like it was probably just 5 for that part. And that is what pick? I think I used the I used the in between pickup setting for that, or the bridge pickup. I can't remember. Maybe I used the bridge pickup. Yeah, I think I used the bridge pickup actually for that. And definitely, once again, the Jackson JS22 7-string was used for that. And then this is like sort of like the main riff that starts off the song here on the right channel. And I'm pretty sure I used the bridge, or no, I used the neck pickup for this. Definitely the neck pickup. Yeah, definitely the neck pickup there. Yeah, so and so that part, so the going back here, this is just the same part all the way through. And you know, it just repeats and repeats and repeats. But this part here, the chords, that sort of changes. It just repeats here, but in the later on in the first verse, before they get to the first chorus, they do this, and it's hard to hear in the mix. But if you listen closely, they just play just the root notes on the guitar. And so I tried to incorporate that, and it's really subtle in the mix, but I'm pretty sure I can hear it in the original mix, and I think I can see it in some live videos when they play as well too. Just sort of playing some clean bar, or just sort of like power chords underneath the beat the other guitar, and together they sound like this. Yeah. Okay, and what's next? Oh yeah, right here is the clean solos. Here, I'm just gonna turn off the snap feature here so I can get right there. That's the Jackson 7-string guitar. I you know what? Like, I think that's a pretty great sounding guitar. Like, I'm did not expect to get clean sounds like this out of it, you know? That's pretty juicy sounding, you know. I like that. And yeah, and then we've got the solo down here, and the solos, I just did that in one take, and then I doubled the very last note of it. And I don't think I panned these at all. I think that yeah, here's the solo, and I'm pretty sure I played this with the neck pickup, and definitely on the Jackson. Yeah, I think I played it with the neck pickup. The bends are atrocious in this. I'm totally embarrassed by the bends. They are totally way too sharp. I tried fixing it with pitch correction. In fact, I think one of the notes on the recording here, let's just dig. Oh yeah, I did actually. I tried to fix, I don't know which one, but one of these I tried to fix with pitch correction, and it didn't work at all. I just said, to the heck with it, and I'll just leave it on there anyways. But all truths be told, I'm totally embarrassed by this solo. But you know, I think that I hit that last note not too bad. The amp, you know, earlier I was saying about getting the amp just in that butter zone where it just sort of feeds back a little bit in its own, and that's a good example of why right there, is because you can get like a little bit of nice harmonic feedback at the end of your solos, you know. And that's just the one track, and when you put the doubled one, it has a really nice effect on it because you get like this subtle sort of chorus thing too. Lots of fun. Yeah, so that's the different tracks that are in the song. Okay, let's let's look at the oh yeah, let's go back and just solo everything just so you can hear what they sound like on their own. So here's like the drums. Yeah, okay, and then here's the bass guitar. Oh yeah, wait a minute. Oh, I just remembered. Oh my gosh. You know what? The bass guitar on this song is totally not the Sterling 5-string. I forgot all about it. Wow. No, this song was recorded with my old bass, which was that Yamaha BB 300, I think. And it's a 4-string. And I tuned it down to like replicate a 5-string bass that was tuned down a half step, and then also dropped the B down to an A, so it would be an A flat. So the bass was tuned a half step down, or no, it was tuned, well, basically the lowest note on it was like an A flat or something insane like that, so I could get a really low note. Anyways, the bass, I think, sounds terrible on this song. I'm so embarrassed by it. I wish I should go and do it again with the Sterling, but whatever, Listen how flaw. Ugh. It's ridiculous. It's those low notes. That's just ridiculous. Oh well. I don't even think it's the right note. It's probably like two seminotes too high, or at least one or something. Oh gosh. Oh well. Anyways, it's just the bass anyways, right? Haha. Just kidding. Yeah, here's the chorus guitar soloed. Here's the left one. That's the bridge pickup for sure. And here's the neck pickup. I love the way that sounds. It's like, it just sounds ridiculous, Like it's just over the top. Oh, I love those bad brass. Oh yeah, that's some good blah blah guitar tone right there. Yeah, there's the. Yeah, I'll solo those together because they sound really cool when they're doubled, and I pan these pretty far left and right. Yeah, here, let's listen to these other ones here. Yeah, there we go. And I already kind of soloed the other tracks, so I won't bother with the rest of them. But yeah, there you go. That's what those ones sound like. It's not going to take very long to look at how the mix was equalized, because I didn't use any EQing at all whatsoever in the entire mix for this song. I used all external EQ. I didn't use anything within the software. I didn't use any high pass filters. I didn't boost any high frequencies. I didn't cut any low frequencies, and I didn't touch the mid-range on anything at all whatsoever. And I don't know, it's likely my ego just getting the best of me with stuff like that, like it's not like I have a problem with using EQ, but I see it more as a challenge, like I'd rather keep it all outside of the computer. But I will take a moment to say it is not above me to use any computer-based EQs at all whatsoever. In fact, in my most recent recordings, I'm using tons of computer-based EQ on it. But, I think that during this time when I made this recording, I was just be like, no, I'm only going to use external EQ. And, that sort of mindset. That happens every once in a while. But I think as long as we don't stay there all the time, I think that that's probably what's best in the long run, really. Dynamics are the same story. I have not used any gates or compression at all whatsoever on this recording, with inside the computer, at least on the individual tracks. I relied completely on the external compression from the Warm Audio WA2A for everything in this song. Like the bass was compressed with that quite a lot, and the clean guitar tracks were probably compressed. I probably shaved like 3 to 5 dB off on the compressed setting, and I didn't use a lot of color from the compressor on the clean guitar tracks, but the distorted ones I used a ton of color, and I compressed probably more like in the 7 to 10 dB range, and maybe not quite as heavy as that. But I definitely would have used the attenuator on the warm pre and cranked up the output gain on the WA2A for sure on the distorted guitar tracks. Yeah, and then the solo, I almost definitely probably like squashed that quite a lot with the compressor, and yeah. Okay, that's how I used compression on the mix. Let's talk about buses, because buses are very important to me. And no, I'm not talking about the way that we get back and forth to work. I'm talking about how we get audio in and out of Reason. So here's how I broke down the busing for this song. The original track is it's muted down here in the sequencer, but not up here in the mixer. But the original track is not in the output mix. The drums are on their own. They're not bussed. They just go directly to the master, as does the bass guitar. And I don't want to put things unnecessarily through buses. That's important to me. I only use buses when necessary, but I use them all the time. And I use them to keep things simpler, and also just to help create the sound canvas as well too. I tend to keep like sonically similar things in similar buses, and also transiently similar things in similar buses, and also rhythmically similar things in buses as well too. The name I didn't. The naming of this session was not great. I got kind of lazy with the track names, but I'll try and clarify it here for you. So all of the clean guitar tracks go through their own bus, and I only yeah, that's it. Yeah, just that, and then that bus goes to the master. And that's nice because I can control the volume of all of them at the same time with this one master bus. So I can set up the mix of all the clean tracks right here, and then I can control them all at once with the master bus right here. And you'll see that I have the chorus guitars. Oh, sorry, no, these are the distorted. This is the distorted guitar bus. My bad. Sorry. And you can see that they're panned hard left and right. And another feature I like to use because of busing is this width feature. Because if I take the guitars and I double them and pan them hard left and right to get a fuller guitar sound, I can bring them back towards the center with this width knob, and then this just sort of limits like the maximum width of the stereo width, I guess. So it goes to 127. So like 63 for example would mean like everything, like the tracks are only panned 50%. So yeah, that's how I use that often, and I actually use that here for the leads in the chorus. You can see that they're panned hard left and right, but I have the width control backed down to 99 here, because that just sort of brings them a little closer to the center. I try to play with the stereo width quite often with buses throughout the arrangement in a song, so that certain elements of a song gradually get wider and wider as the song progresses, because I like the idea that the width of the mix can expand throughout the arrangement of the song. And it doesn't always have to be linear. It doesn't always have to go from like narrow to wide. It can go from narrow to wide to narrow to wide to like in any sort of like particular order. It's just like a cool another like sort of trick you can use up your sleeve to make your arrangements more dynamic and have more, I don't know, just more stuff to them, if you want, it's kind of neat. So let's move on here. Yeah, so here's the clean guitars. They're on their own bus, and they're panned pretty close. They're actually, I think, yeah, they're panned 50% left and right with the width control on the bus right here. And then the solos, they are, normally I actually would put all those through their own bus, but I haven't done that this time. They're all on their individual tracks. And there's 3 there because, yeah, the 3 different leads. There's like the clean leads, and then there's the 2 distorted leads at the end of the song for the main solo. Yeah, there is how the song is sort of set up with buses. I didn't add a lot of effects to this song. There's no effects added to the drums or the bass, although the drums, I think I might have added a snare reverb. Let's just have a look. Let's find the drums here. Click on that. Yeah, I did. So how I added a reverb to the drums is I used this RV 7000 Mark II. This is one of the very few plugins that I use, and this is what I use for the drum reverb. And the reverb on the drums is just on the cymbals and the snare and the kick, and or I guess pretty much everything really, but just in slightly varying levels. And yeah, I just use that sort of, if we hit the tab button here, we can see the back of the drum thingamajigger here, and you can see I go out of aux 1 to the audio input here, and then the audio output just goes to its own master or effects bus, and that way I can just use these controls here to send the individual amounts of reverb that I want on the drums. And so that is the reverb that is on the drums. Okay, let's go back here. Close this part down too. Okay, and then moving over here, I use this drum live end, which is just, I think it's like the stock room reverb that just pops up when you open up a new session on Reason. And that's what I have on the distorted guitars. And on the clean guitars, I have a plate reverb, and I have this warm echo. And that is, let's just have a look at that plugin, because I love that plugin. It's great. Wait a minute, no, where are we at here? Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is the one I use for all the echoes that are on this song, and like the delays, and so all of the solos have some sort of degree or element of delay or echo on them. And this is what I use for it. And the reason I use it is because this does a really, really nice sort of ping pong delay, although I'm not actually using ping pong delays on this song. And the real reason I like it is because it does this really nice beat synced delays. And it does the really nice sort of dotted dotted sort of delay sound. So you get like that edge from U2 delay sound. It's really nice to set up, and you can add this extra diffusion, which gives it sort of this different ambience, and you can color it with drive and this fill. It's just cool. It's like one of those things that has like too many bells and whistles, So I try not to get too swept and have too much fun with it, But it's pretty cool as far as plugins go. Yeah. So what else we got on here? Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean the clean guitars, they have that room reverb on them, kind of like the distorted guitars do, and then the solos, they all have that plate reverb, and I usually put more delay on the main solo than like the minor solos that are in the middle sections of the song, and that's how this one went down too. You can see that on the as like minus 21 dB is the send level for the clean solos, and it's like minus 12 dB for the main solos, so quite a bit more. I use the same reverb plugin, but just in a bunch of different instances for all of the reverb sounds. Well, that pretty much sums everything up for the mix. And let's just talk about the master here, because I do master my mixes at home. And the reason I do that is because I'm not really mixing like the songs together in an album form, and all I'm doing is just like a basic master just to make it loud and sort of just do a little bit of subtle EQ and dynamics adjustment. Really, I don't do a lot as far as the master goes, and I just do it at the exact same time as I export the mix down as well too, because it saves me the step of having to master externally. And I am not going to sit here and say that I am doing like a super artful master at all whatsoever. All of my masters are just totally like utilitarian, and they just make the song loud and a little bit of like a smiley face EQ idea on it. And that's basically it. And that way I can forget about the master and focus on the mix more. And because the reason why I do that is because I found that like pretty much most of the mastering that I do like almost has like the same settings most of the time anyways. So I feel like, well, if I just kind of kept it really vanilla, the master and the effect that it has on the song sonically, then I can pay more attention to sort of like the elements that make like sort of like the ingredients in the recipe, if you will, rather than like how like the presentation is, because I feel like if mixing is like cooking, then sort of like when you're recording, that's like all your prep work for everything, and then when you're like combining and mixing all your parts, well, that's sort of like the cooking of it, and then mastering is sort of like your presentation, like plating it, sort of an idea. And like if the way I master, if I could compare it to how you would plate a dish in a restaurant, it would be like just a basic white plate with like something in the middle of it, not really too worried about what the plate looks like, I guess that's sort of my philosophy on mastering. So at that, yeah, this is how I do it. Basically, the way that the Reason works is the master bus always has this copy of an SSL bus compressor running, or not always, like you can turn it on if you want, bypass it, of course. But I utilize that all the time, and it's on basically everything that I do all the time because it sounds absolutely fantastic. And, and that's one of those things that I'll say, this is like a reason why we need to like remember that like we have to keep something human in our music, because computers are pretty awesome. They really are powerful, and they really do sound very, very, very good. But as good as this sounds, I still would love to have, like, say, the Warm Audio SSL bus compressor copy or something, But anyhow, whatever, I digress. Okay, the way I use this is I don't use it too heavily, and I use it to just squish the mix a little bit. I just use it to sort of pull things together, and the setting is almost always the exact same on this for every song, although I do adjust it from song to song as needed. Is usually the threshold is set somewhere around minus 12, and I'm shaving off somewhere around 3 or 4 dB, and ratio is always at 2, never changes from there, and the master attack is always at 30, and the master release is always at 1.2 unless sometimes I'll run it at 0.6, and very rarely, seldomly, maybe I might put it on auto sometimes too if I'm feeling really funky. Yeah. And then makeup, I don't really pay attention to that too much. I either add nothing or I will add something if I can't get enough gain with the maximizer on them in the mastering suite. But I would rather add the gain here than there. Yeah. And the reason why is because this is transparent, clean gain, where this is going to have a subtle amount of color. And now that I say that, sometimes I might use that, but I think at this stage in mastering, my idea is to just sort of keep things clean, and that's sort of why I don't want to add it there. Yeah, so that happens after the main mix bus. This is inserted into the main mix bus, and then these are what it hits next. So it goes through this EQ, and just real quickly, I usually just boost about like 1 or maybe 1.5 or 2 dB down around 60 hertz. It's at 48 there right now. But yeah, usually I would boost that at 60. And and then I don't do anything with the mids. And then the highs, oh yeah, this is a low shelf, by the way. And then a high shelf always is at 12 kilohertz. That never changes. And then I just boost it until, of course, I boost these until they sound right, but they typically always end up in like a 1 to a 3 dB gain range. And I am telling you, if I see these anywhere above 3 dB, I start to panic. Like, there's like, whoa, what is going on? Like, these are to me like a good indicator. Like, if you're getting the amount of clarity that you really need and the amount of fullness in your mix that you really need, and these controls are very close to their neutral setting, then that's a really good thing, So don't be scared to push them, but also don't be lazy to leave them set too high. If they're set too high, then you got to go back to work. That's my philosophy. Okay, the Stereo Imager is a really cool, fun plugin that I basically never ever use because I don't want to mess around with my stereo image. I feel like it's gonna mess around with all the hard work I've already put into creating stereo images with my doubling of the guitars and my reverbs and my delays and echoes. I don't want to mess all that up by throwing this all on. And and I used to hang me up a lot, because I'd put a lot of work in all this stuff, and then I'd go and mess it all up by throwing a stupid plugin in on after everything else, just because I felt obligated to use it because it was there. And that sort of stuff really, it really sort of bugs me. Sorry, I don't want to stay too negative, but anyways, that's Stereo Imager. I don't have fond memories of it, but it does sound really cool, So when I do synth stuff and more ambient, wacky sort of stuff, yeah, I totally use it all the time. But on this recording, it did not get used, and I would pretty much never ever use it on a recording that's going to sound sort of like this. Say It Ain't So one. The built-in M-Class compressor is a fantastic, awesome sounding compressor. It's totally neutral sounding. It's just awesome. It works so good. It is so transparent. It is awesome. But that's the one exception I make in my masters is I like things to, I don't know, I like the funkiness from the SSL compressor. I feel like it just has a little more character, and I kind of like that in the master, But I wouldn't really mind using this one for the master stage. I don't know. I just like the SSL one more. It's probably just a personal, subjective opinion, really, than anything else. This is the maximizer, and this is the limiter, and then yeah, I rely on this heavily. I pay pretty close attention to what's going on with this one because this is the last step in the audio chain, And the golden rule is the be all end all here, folks. Okay, you really have to go with what sounds right, not loudest or not what you think you should do. Okay, go with the best balance of what you think you should do and what sounds good that you can possibly sleep with at night. That's my recommendation with how to use a limiter as the very last step in your mix process. Just try to find the balance that you can sleep with at night, okay? Because you'll never be totally satisfied, okay? Anyways, that's how I think about it. Anyways, and on this song, these are how the settings sort of ended up here, okay? I use the input gain, and I just use as much as I need. It's totally transparent. It doesn't add any sonic character to it, so I just add as much as I need. And I'm typically not really shaving off any more than -4 to -8. And anything beyond -4, I start to panic, And speaking on that, like your transients throughout the song should stay fairly consistent, but the song should sound dynamic, But you can add dynamics in a lot of different ways, not just with the volume of things. You can do it with the frequency and the equalization of things, and that's how you get consistent volume dynamics through a song, is through manipulation of EQ frequencies, not just the volume of things. You got to really think about like the fullness in a mix, like, and how like I don't know. That's a big rabbit hole I could go down, But yeah. Anyways, yeah. I digress. Let's move on. Okay. The attack's always set for fast. I don't want to miss anything. And then I often actually set the release for fast as well too, most of the time. But sometimes I'll set it to slow, and I'm not sure if I can actually hear a difference or not, to be totally honest, But sometimes I feel like I can hear a difference between them, And this song has a slower tempo, and that's usually what I go for. It has like a slower feel, and that's usually where the release goes for the song. If it's really fast, then it goes fast. And the song feels slow, it stays slow. That's sort of my idea with it. Output gain is set to 0 on this one, and I would basically never touch that unless I needed to do it for some utilitarian purpose, but it's always at 0 or minus 0.3 or somewhere around there. And the soft clip, I turned that on this, but I don't always use it. The reason I did it for this song is because I think that I was actually like, let me just play it for a second here and see how much are we actually... Yeah, see, and like the loud section of the song, it's like 4, maybe 6 dB of gain reduction, something like that. And so I was starting to feel a little nervous. So when I feel like that, but I feel like it's still necessary to get that much gain reduction with the limiter, then I use this soft clip feature. And what that does is it just sort of emulates, it adds like a little bit of character to the signal, and it just sort of helps to soften up the distortion that's created by clipping, or like by the limiting of all of the sort of the transients in the waveform. And it's subtle, but it does sort of like soften the sound up a little bit, but like not in like a wussy way, like in a nice way, like, and it's a really nice, like, I don't know, it just adds like this sort of nice sort of ambientness that you can put on the final step of your track or something, but I'm very like careful how I use it, and I would only ever use a teensy tiny little bit of it at the end if I use it at all, but yeah, that it ended up on this one. And yeah, so that pretty much like takes us through like how the master kind of went down on this song, and I guess I could sort of play it with and without it, so here's what it sounds like with the mastering thing, and then I'll bypass it here, okay? And I can just hit that bypass button right there. So here's the chorus. It's turned on right now. Now I'll turn it off. With it, like all I'm really trying to do is just add a little bit of fullness and make it a little bit louder. And really, I mean, what more do you want out of a master, right? You just basically want it to be a bit louder and sound a bit more kind of full and balanced, right? Like, yeah, so that's sort of my approach to mastering of an individual song. It would be a different approach for an album, or I don't know, I might even get more in depth with other songs too, but for something that's like straight up rock like this, like there's no reason to overcomplicate it. I think you can keep it pretty straightforward in terms of the master as well too. Now it's time to get to the part of the video where I share an inspiring message with everybody, and today's message is don't be too hard on yourself. The reason why I say that is because what we do is hard, it's very challenging to learn this sort of stuff that we need to know to create music and to know what to do next, and it takes a long time to learn these sorts of things. And I know for me, I was very eager to learn some of the stuff I know now, and I'm very eager to learn more and more as well too. But the drawback to that sort of insatiable urge for understanding and knowledge is that sometimes you can find that you're not really happy with where you are at in life sometimes. And for me, I needed to learn that you may already be at where you want to be in life. So it's a good idea to just stop and sort of smell the roses every once in a while and take a look, because you might actually already be where you want to be in life. Sometimes it's a good idea to take a look at things through a different perspective. Well, folks, that wraps up today's video, where we had a behind the scenes look at the recording of the 7-string guitar cover of Weezer's Say It Ain't So. If you enjoyed it, then please don't forget to hit the like button and comment on the video, and maybe even subscribe to the Mears Lab channel. You can now find Mears Lab on TikTok as well, and I'm posting some unique content over there, so be sure to check that out too. Thanks a lot for watching, folks. I really appreciate all your support. I'll see you next time.